Hi, and welcome back to Bots and Beyond, another fantastic episode that we have lined up for you today. Another amazing guest, as always. This time it's Joe Bechtel. Joe has very kindly agreed to join us on the show today. So thank you, Joe, and welcome.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks for having me here.
Absolute pleasure, and thank you for joining. I know we've got a great episode lined up today. Our pre-chat was a glorious affair, and I really got a lot out of it myself, and so I'm sure the audience are going to fully appreciate as we deep dive into Joe's experience at Humana and some of the amazing things that the team over there have managed to do. So without further ado, I know a little bit about Joe, but for everybody else's benefit, we'll do our usual intro, which is who you are, what you do, and more importantly, why you do it, Joe.
So Wayne, I think to start off, like who I am, I'm always curious about how we can improve the associated member experience. And at the core, it's because I'm a problem solver. We have a phrase across our organization to always treat every project or initiative like a rookie. So always walk in like you've never seen this problem or situation before, and ask all of the questions as we start building out our solutions. I work at Humana, a leading healthcare company that offers a wide range of insurance products and health and wellness services. What do? I have been in healthcare for the last 15 years and have focused on data and analytics for 10 of those years. Throughout my career, a lot of what I have been trying to do is figure out how we can find the right data to solve problems that are affecting different parts of the business. And when it comes to automation, a lot of automation is really just data problems. Is the data in the correct systems? Is it where we need it to be to make the right decisions? How hard is it to get it? And as we continue to mature our processes and empower our associates and clinicians, we want to give them the tools and abilities to normalize those data problems so we can leverage components like OCR and ML more often as this process has become more mature.
Well, great to meet you. I'm sure the audience are going to be incredibly interested in everything else that you've got to say. And you sound like you know Humana pretty well, and I think that comes across. And I guess it's because you do. There's a couple of things that always resonated about our conversations. Number one, you're a problem solver, so you're just like me. I always describe myself as a problem solver. I love solving problems, right? That's just what makes me tick. So that's why I know we will get along so well, Joe, because you're exactly the same. And also, you didn't go to Humana necessarily to start a career, but you've been there 12 years now. You've had various different roles. So talk to us a little bit about those 12 years. Where did you start? And then we'll move on to where you are now.
Absolutely. I believe I have a unique background as we look at Humana. So as I've been here for 12 years, I started off as a pharmacy technician as we were growing our pharmacy business, entering prescriptions and just getting out of college and starting that job. And as I moved my career forward, we started switching over to different pharmacy management systems. So we had to migrate information from an old legacy system to a modern one. So then I started stepping more into helping advise on those features and skill sets that were needed to migrate data, as well as uptrain and skill the staff to take on that challenge as we move forward. After that, it layered me into building out workflows and process improvement work in our specialty and mail order pharmacies, and then continued to leverage data and analytics, task mining solutions, and improving performance management, just streamlining those operations. That led then to how do we scale call recording at the enterprise level, as well as speech analytics. And then naturally, as we started transcribing calls, that led to how do we take these words that we're saying and create automations or use machine learning components to build up that strategy. Now I'm continuing to lead the enterprise initiatives and effectively operationalize that strategy, coming from those grassroots of being a person that was actually doing the work on the ground, and then working with other clinicians to scale.
I honestly think it's a unique background, but the type of background that you've had there, very, very reminiscent to me when I was at Telefonica. I started as an agent on the phone, and therefore I knew from the very ground up what made this business tick, what the systems were, what our processes were like. And as I progressed through various different roles in different departments, by the time I was kind of directing transformation and digitizing customer service, I knew it inside out. I mean, it just gives you such a strong background And it really positions yourself as an internal thought leader because you really do know what the problems are because you've literally lived them. So that's fantastic. And again, another reason why I really resonate, your background really resonates with me. Now, and one of the things I didn't do, but you have. So you spent over a decade in operations and then you moved across to IT. And I guess that's where you're residing at the moment. So talk to us a little bit about that move. It's not unique, but it's also not a particularly common move. You know, we often see the role of IT and operations still as very separate functions, but you've made that move over. So talk to us a little bit about what drove that change and what you're up to at the moment with it.
Yeah. About 5 years ago, that's when I started diving into automation more. That's when the technology and companies started emerging in the industry. And keep in mind, I've always been the person to use Excel to automate items. As I was building out those workflows in our pharmacies, there was just tons of data that I had to bring together for those things. So when the technology for low code, no code solutions started to emerge, I started to fall in love. So 5 years ago, we just working with my IT partners at that time, we went off and we purchased licenses for an automation solution, and then I was tasked to scaling that across our healthcare services segment. And by doing that, we start to take something that we wanted to do at an enterprise level and have that at a slightly smaller scale of how do we build a community of clinicians and associates and teach them the skills they need to leverage this technology, but with the appropriate governance around it. So the risk can sit with the IT side and let the operations SMEs and leaders innovate on that technology. So working with my IT partners at that current time, we just started to break down that wall between business and IT and started merging our teams together as fusion teams to learn this new skill set together, talk about what that governance looks like, and how do we scale that more broadly. So about 2 years ago now, I was tapped on the shoulder to help build out that community of practice across the enterprise and scale up our citizen developer program in data literacy initiatives, not just in healthcare services, but more broadly across our enterprise. So that's why they took me out of operations and then layered me into IT.
I guess you kind of answered some of this, but that use of automation, what really got you interested in automation then? I guess it feels like it's, again, something it's a trait of yours, always looking for problem, creating efficiency gains. Certainly one of the things that I know I historically looked at is how can we do better, faster, cheaper, and whether it is an off-the-shelf automation tool or, as you say, whether it's a macro in Excel, VBA, an ability to have dual monitors, whatever that value is, and where you can get that additional efficiency. I guess that's kind of your mindset also, and that's I guess one of the reasons why you got interested in automation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other one is I firmly believe that associate experience drives a member's experience. And like I said, kind of like my own story, somebody empowered me to learn new skills. And by empowering me to do that, it changed the course of my career and the direction that I was going. And I realized at that point that the things I thought I was good at, there was another pathway for me, breaking down data and analyzing outcomes, and then ultimately helping those patients at the point of sale, the point of care. That's really where my passion sits. So as we look forward, and what drives me to it is these low code, no code solutions provide a solution for the experienced nurses, pharmacists, call advocates to leverage that experience to improving the process using technology. And what we're finding is a lot of people are more technical in nature than we give them credit for. And as they're learning and empowering them to leverage this, we're starting to see an exponential increase on the amount of automations that we're deploying, but more importantly, the outcomes that they're changing, leveraging that tool.
That does make a lot of sense. And I love the fact that the experience drives member experience. And I guess it's one of the things that you've really seen, and again, it stood out from our earlier conversation, one of the successes, at least as I see what you have been doing from the outside in, is around a cultural shift. You've really been embracing automation at a cultural level. Talk to us a little bit about how that's been achieved.
Definitely. So, first and foremost, we kicked off a community of practice, and this is where we take associates from various backgrounds. They could be nurses, doctors, pharmacists, IT professionals, architects, you name it. It's literally a cross section of skill levels and backgrounds across our enterprise. Show up to our community and help each other out through learning just different approaches and different design techniques that they've used to solve those problems. The folks that are typical with an IT background are learning more about what it's like to provide direct customer service in our call centers and vice versa. Those customer advocates are also learning the pressures that IT professionals take on each day as they're building out the code. So then we started layering up, taking that community as that base and that foundation, and strictly around developer at the beginning. And we started layering in other personas into that. Now we're teaching how to discover opportunities, how to design bots or applications differently. And how do you layer in complexity as you start off simple and you keep growing and building those Lego blocks and modules on top of those simple automations. And one way we've thought we put in place that we would effectively leverage that is by building out a mentorship program layered into that community of practice. That mentorship program empowers the associates in the communities to work together, either in a mentor circle or a one-on-one, whatever's more comfortable for them. And by doing that, we've seen an uptick on people continuing their journey around automation, whether it's in a design capacity, being a product manager and executing portfolios, or a developer, most likely.
Excellent. And I know something that you mentioned when we first spoke was around, this cultural change. It drives innovation, which I loved. But I'd say it also drove new roles and promotions and mentorships. Like, this cultural shift has been built on the fact that you're not just claiming hours back to the business, you're building careers. And I really liked that chain of conversation that we were having. So talk to us a little bit more about that. What are some of those benefits of your employees that you're seeing?
Like you mentioned, cultural change drives innovation. And a lot of time in technology, we start off and it's usually a short-term solution. We recognize through the community of practice for automation, as well as the mentorships, that if we want sustained change and progression and skill sets, that we need to embed that into our culture. And luckily, from our leadership at Humana, they have embraced that direction for us, which has been a huge catalyst in driving this forward. As we've been building this out over the last few years, we have trained over 300 citizen developers across 5 different personas, from discovery of opportunity through implementation and execution. Within that, we've also expanded roles within organizations, empowering associates to become product leaders of their automation for their business segments, and embracing engineers as a citizen developer. Because you got to remember, oftentimes when we say citizen developer, they normally would retain that old title or old role as call advocate, pharmacy technician, and now we're shifting those job codes over to automation engineer within that spaces, which is starting to differentiate their skill set from everybody else, as well as leveling them up so they can go down a different career journey that best suits them.
Oh, that is good. I mean, one of the challenges I've always seen with citizen developer programs is the fact that if it is a bolt-on to your role and you're not given the kind of the time and the support that you need, then you get some training and you don't really deliver much. And so seeing that shift that you're able to make where you've got the right training, you've got the right support. I know you've got tools and capabilities that help the person move from zero to hero as far as understanding and being able to deliver on automation is concerned. You've got the right cultural foundation there. People clearly seen over the years that this isn't just a flash in the pan. So you've got so many positive things going on that are really driving that shift. It would be amiss of me not to ask about the so what. So what have you been able to deliver? What's the end goal for all of this? Why are you automating? Why have you made it such a cultural mandate, let's say? And what are the benefits that you have seen as a result of this approach? Because I'm sure that will just put the nail on the head for the listener.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are, I'll go simple with the numbers. So training over 300 citizen developers across 5 different personas, like I just mentioned. But what the outcome of what they've been able to accomplish is creating over 300 process automations and steps as they go through that. And keep in mind, they take these things along their own maturity path, and we help them through that as a center of excellence team. And what I mean is, we're not forcing them to develop 8 automations a year, but as they're starting to layer in 5 process automation steps, then they turn that in to another bot that layers on 10. And then before long, it was a bridge project initially, and that bridge project may have been just copying data from left screen to right screen. And now, usually about 12 to 18 months after, now they're starting to improve their data literacy more to leverage machine learning components as well as OCR capabilities to turn that automation in from simple process automation to more of the intelligent pathway as we move forward. So as we look at that, we're impacting our operational teams, not just in the vertical silos anymore, but because we have a community of practice. Now we're seeing impact from point of sale delivery at that point and touching a horizontal integration.
Excellent. I mean, some scarily brilliant numbers there. But I think, as I say, as much as the numbers kind of come out, I've always said this, that one of the key challenges that an organization faces is, how do you turn automation from a project into a capability, and then bake it into your culture, so that constant innovation, efficiency, automation, all of these things are they're just what you do. They're not something that you think about. It's just how you work. And I think it's organizations that make that shift are going to be the ones that do truly flourish in this world of automation, especially as the people are being brought along in the journey. And as much as we talk, and we haven't spoken lots about technology today, but certainly automation is driven by technology, but it is only enabled and will only ever be successful if the people are on board. And I think one of the things I've taken from our conversations, Joe, is your people are very much on board with using technology to drive positive change for themselves and for the members. So I think with that, I mean, what a great episode. And thank you ever so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure. And thank you, everybody else, for listening. I'm sure if anyone has got any queries or questions, Joe won't mind you reaching out on LinkedIn. His details will be available in the show notes, and I'm sure he will be happy to answer any questions on today's episode. So thank you, Joe. Thank you, listeners. And we will see you again on Bots and Beyond in the next couple of weeks.